call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.
What up? Welcome back to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my McFarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now today it will be a live action figure. This is going to be Shazam from the upcoming Fury of the Gods DC movie release. Now this is the second film in this little series. They did have Shazam, the original one. I really liked it when I first saw it, but over time I've noticed that it's not necessarily that I really like the movie. I mean, I do enjoy it, but I only enjoy certain scenes and other parts I could just skip through. So it's not really like a movie I've been like really rewatching over and over again. But it is good for what it was. And now it did get a sequel. Even though right now the DC Cinematic Universe is up in the air. We're not necessarily sure what's going to happen. But I was really interested in checking out this figure because I think McFarlane is picking up the game in certain points. But I also had some reservations because there were certain things I saw that I didn't really know if I was going to like. But in the end, he does look like a champion in the packaging. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at him. But hold on. The way they have him in the packaging actually reminds me of something. I can't quite put my finger on it. But first, he does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stand. Now, these are not really needed, but sometimes they do come in useful. He also comes with his data file card. On the front, you do have some kind of artwork based on the film, kind of like in a comic book style. Pretty cool pose there. And on the back, you do have some information added to the collection. Now he does come with some accessories. Now you do have alternate hands and there's sets of each. So you have a fist and a kind of gesturing open hand, but they actually match onto the figure. But this is how he came in the packaging. But pretty cool hands. You could swap them out. I kind of prefer them with fists, but to have the gesturing hands really gives you a little bit more ability to choose if you're going to be doing any figure photography or stuff like that. So it's pretty awesome. Always appreciate that. And of course he does come with two lightning effects. Now these are a nice crystal blue. They are not exactly matching, but they do mirror each other. As always, I don't really use these a lot, but they're always nice to have in the toolbox in case you want to use them. But let's go ahead and take a closer look at them. Now, first impressions, as I said before, some things I really like, but some things I'm not sure how I feel about them. We'll check it out during this review. What I could see right away is that this is a really nice live action figure. McFarlane's really come a long way. Love the detail in the sculpt work, and also the likeness is really good. Not sure who plays him. I think his name's Levi or Levi, but it does pretty much look like him. Now, one thing I don't really like is they kind of made him just like you can't even say he's angry or serious. It's more just like a deadpan face where he has like no emotion at all. So I might do something just to like liven it up a little bit, but we'll take a look at that later on. Let's start off with the head sculpt. Now, it is a really good likeness, and after the Black Adam figure that we received of The Rock, we know that McFarlane can get some figures really close to what the actor looks like. One thing I don't really like is that they put just a little bit too much red tone, especially down the forehead and on the cheeks and around the eyes. It kind of looks like he hit his forehead on something, and then this is like the aftermath that his forehead is all red. but we'll touch that up towards the end of the video. But really good likeness. Like the hair, even though it is a little bit more glossy than I actually prefer. So we'll also hit that later on in the video. Now he can look down really well. It's a little bit stiff, but I mean, he does have the range. He can look up. That's awesome. You got right to left. And of course, you can tilt his head for some character. Pretty sweet. Let's take a look down to the chest. You got that Shazam Thunderbolt symbol. Now, I kind of would have preferred if they just made it completely like shades of gold and yellow, but they added kind of like a really like high orange, light orange effect around. And I guess that's like to represent if it's giving off like energy. But it's pretty cool. I just kind of would prefer if it was more yellow or gold. But it does not detract from the nice setup that they have. Now it is a little bit short. I think they could have made it go down right to the bottom of the upper torso piece, but it's fine. Going down to the pretty cool belt that has some cool sculpt work in it and design. Nice gold color. That's one thing about this figure, is that the colors pop, more than usual. It gives off a really nice vibe. Let's check out the waist articulation. You do have side to side. Really smooth. You do have that full tilt-a-whirl at the waist. You do have a lower waist swivel, an upper chest swivel. So you can twist them, get them in some pretty cool flying poses. Now, he does have a slight crunch. It's not too much, but it's more than usual. And of course, as always, he can lean back to get him in some pretty cool action poses. You can get him in a T pose. Not much higher than that, but pretty good range. You can get his arms above his head. And then they did cut out right here for like a little bit more range, and you can actually clasp his hands around his fist, which is a pretty nice extra little range of motion. Now looking at the shoulder, you do have that bushing socket sort of faux butterfly joint with a lot of range. You do have a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows. They actually look pretty clean. And then going from the shoulder down into these pretty awesome gauntlets. They have a like tone of silver and gold, which is really nice. The texture in the costume is just impeccable. Going down into where it goes into the hand. Now this is something that I saw that I didn't know if I was really going to like, and that is that instead of having a flesh wrist joint there, they actually made it match up to the gauntlet. Now, although it does look like it goes up all the way, like the sleeve hits the bottom of his wrist or meets up to his hand, sometimes it depends what figure it is, of how it looks with a flesh color, or to do it like this, like to match up with the sleeve. But we'll take a look at that as well. Now on the other side you have the same thing, and it goes down into one of those gesturing hands. Let's take a look at the thigh swivel. Pretty nice. Didn't even have to heat him up, and he does have a nice range, which means you could swivel the boot from right to left without a thigh cut. It can kick up pretty nicely, and of course he can kick back pretty high. Now do not be scared about the trunks, because they are rubber. When you put them back, they go back to their original form. You can cock out his knee, bend it, and you got that nice hip swivel. Double jointed knees, straighten them out. Ankle goes up and down. Something pretty cool is you don't have a lot up, but it basically moves as much as a human foot would move, but you do get down really nice. So this is more of like a modified joint, which actually works really nice. You got right to left, really nice rocker, and toe articulation. Now before we go, let's take a look at the lower body. I actually love these boots, like the gold that they used and the silver highlights inside. It's just awesome. Some of the pegs on the legs do not really match the red. It's like a darker red because there's two tones on the suit, like on the inner part of it and the inner sweep. And actually up in the arms as well, it was cool that they matched the outer peg with the inner peg, so they're not like mismatching or like the wrong color. But down here it is kind of mismatching, but it's an easy repaint with some darker red, so that's not too bad. But you could see all the texture work and the sculpt work in the suit, kind of reminiscent of what they did with the Black Adam one, which had so much detail. Pretty awesome work from McFarlane. Take a look at the bottom, no tread, but some identifying marks. Moving up the back, cool sculpt work on the boots, up into the legs, up into the back. A lot of detail there. Now this cape is really nice because it is soft and also is really light, but it does have that added gold trim in the back. Pretty signature for a Shazam character. So all in all, I'm not too disappointed. He is better than I thought he would be. Now the things I didn't really like was the face with no emotion. The hair was a little bit too shiny for me. And then I'm not sure about these wrist pegs, if they should be flesh or the same color as the gauntlets. But besides that, everything else looks pretty cool. Now I do want to compare him with some other figures, and also I do want to change a little bit on him. Now the first thing is you can remove these hands, and you can also remove the peg. And I actually have a flesh colored peg here. Let's pop that in. And I also have this other hand, which is like like a trigger pointing hand. So let's pop that in. And that kind of gives him a little bit more character. And actually the flesh colored wrist joint looks pretty good. I mean, it's hard for me to tell. I like it, but I also like the one that's colored like the gauntlet. But this one doesn't look too bad either. It's really hard to decide how it looks. I'm not sure. It looks pretty good with the flesh one, but the other one may be the way to go. Now this actually brings me into how I wanted to bring in the comic book gold label Shazam. Now, if you put these two together, you'll actually see that he's really bigger and thicker than the movie version. So I remember he came with these like ginormous hands that are kind of in the same shape as the ones that come with this Shazam. They're just like triple the size, but it kind of makes sense because he's a bigger figure. So they're still kind of big for him. But I could see why they didn't want to match it, and these hands actually look kind of small on him. But it's pretty interesting that they are the same style of hands, like a gesturing hand. And another thing to take notice is like he has flesh colored pegs for his wrists, and it looks good because they could have made them gold like the way the gauntlets are, but they made them flesh color and it actually flows really nice, which is kind of what I'm trying to say about switching out these pegs. Just all depends what you prefer. Now, another figure to bring out is the Superman from the Justice League, the red and blue version. Henry Cavill, of course. Now, I did repaint this guy and gave him a little bit more highlights on his suit. Colored in all like the accents of the Kryptonian symbols like that are like detailed on his suit, And then I actually shaded around his face to give him a little bit more depth because, of course, these were notoriously not shaded at all. So this was like I remember I remember this was like one of my first tries at actually doing that. So it's not too bad, but I might want to go back in now that I have a little bit more experience and probably hit it again just to get it a little closer to Cavill's likeness. But this one looks pretty good next to this Shazam figure because they're both live action figures. But one thing about this guy is he had actually flesh wrist joints on him, and I actually changed them to match the suit. And for some reason, it just looks better on him. Like it just doesn't draw your eye away from the suit, and it goes right into the hands. So this is a case where it actually looks better with the colored wrist joints to match the suit instead of the other way around. So now you have two versions of it. You have one with the flesh color and one with the suit color. And this guy, I'm still not really sure which one I like better. And then let's also bring in the Black Adam in the cloak. This is one of my favorite figures. I just love like the presence he gives off, and pretty cool to match him up with this Shazam. Now they are both live action. This is of course like his enemy. I don't know if we'll ever get to see them actually on screen, but I do like this figure. Now he doesn't have the problem of the wrist joints because since his hands are actually pegged in, they match up right with the sleeve or with the gauntlets or with the wrappings, and there he doesn't have that problem to have that extra little joint, right? Besides the different wrist joint, another thing I wanted to change on this guy was his face paint. Now I did come in and do a little bit of flesh color like on his forehead and around the cheeks a little bit just to lighten it up so they didn't look so red. It looks better. I think it's a little bit shiny, but it actually matches how the neck looks. It does take away that red mark that he had coming down his forehead, and it just looks a little bit more natural. Now, another thing I wanted to do is I wanted to give him kind of a little bit of like a smirk because he just looks so like unemotional to me, like I don't know, like a robot or something. So I actually heated up the head or like around the jaw area, and then I used like a push pin, something like this, and I pushed in the crook of his mouth upwards, and then I did that one like really hard, but then the other side I just did it very lightly. But if you actually look like to the before and after, you can see the difference in like the emotion that he's giving off. In the first one, he's just like lifeless, and in the after I did the little change, he looks like he has a little bit of like cocky attitude or like just a little grin, very small, but it is enough to make me enjoy him a lot more. And then of course I did the hair. I added some matte black, not completely, but enough to like tone down some of the shininess. And then I also added some blue highlights in there just to give it a little bit of pop so it doesn't look so bland. And then of course you can reenact the pose that he has on the data fog card. That's pretty cool. Now pumped him up a little bit higher than I thought, so I am kind of enjoying him now. Not really too sure how I feel about him in total, but if you're interested in him, he's actually really nicely sculpted, awesome articulation. The only negatives were the ones that I pointed out, but I think I will have some fun with him. I'll put back the wrist joints the way it was probably. We haven't made the final decision, but I think he does feel a little bit better now that I did some changes. But he's gonna look pretty cool up there on my live action shelf. You guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.